how not to get a foot infection as a diabetic. All right, well, the first thing is to understand the causes, and I did a video on that outlining 5 main causes why diabetics get foot infections, right? So I'm going to link to that video. Moving on into the first thing to do, foot checks, foot inspections. You need to inspect your foot as a diabetic every single day, not every other day, not every 3 days, but every single day. It is vital, it is crucial, it is the advice that all diabetics get. But unfortunately, life gets in the way, and a lot of times people don't get to inspect their feet until something bad is going on, right? Now, a lot of times people can't actually see the feet properly, and in those cases, you need to get a mirror that is big enough where you can put your foot, hold your foot over it, put it in a position where you can see the image reflected from the mirror and have an idea of what is going on with your foot. If you happen to be living with somebody who you can depend on to do this, then you can get them to look at your foot for you. If all else fails and you don't mind wearing socks, you can buy several pairs of white socks, specifically white, because it will be easy to tell if something is going on because there's some kind of drainage on those white socks. Now, that will be a little too far if you are at the point where you're getting drainage onto the socks, but anyway, it's better than nothing for those of you especially who have no way of looking at your feet. But you certainly don't want to wait until it's starting to smell, and that is your first indication that something is going on with your feet, right? So daily foot foot checks religiously, because you never know when something is going to happen. I remember once I had a patient and he had he had a wife as well, but a lot of times people are private and, various reasons. And so he didn't know what was going on. He came to me, an older man, and I immediately detected a smell in the room, the examining room, and he was sick, a little fever, just not feeling too good. And of course, I pulled off his socks, and lo and behold, his great toe was black. In fact, I thought I was going to pull off that toe in his sock. It was a little unnerving, right? But essentially, he was not inspecting his foot. He didn't do it for days, so the whole toe is black. And by the way, sometimes these changes in diabetic digits, in diabetic toes and so on, can actually happen in days. So that might have happened in less than a week. That's how things can happen sometimes, right? Daily inspections, you never know. Second thing to do to not get diabetic foot infections is just engage in proper foot hygiene. Proper foot hygiene. You have to dry between your toes after a bath. A lot of times it's easy to ignore the feet when you bathe. You must dry them between, not just, over the surface, but get between each of the spaces of your toes and dry them. Germs, especially fungi, yeast, they love moist, warm, dark, cozy environments. So you got to get in there and get rid of that moisture so that they have less reason to take hold in those spaces, right? Another thing as well is that you can use powder, to keep. Sometimes some people just sweat more than others, and sometimes when it's hot, and if you are somebody who you have to go to work and wear enclosed shoes and so on, you can put some type of powder. It could be as simple as cornstarch, but something to absorb that moisture. And then for those of you who might be prone to athlete's foot, you can actually get antifungal powders. You can ask your doctor what type they recommend, but a lot of these antifungal powders are actually available over the counter in the pharmacy as well, right? But the key is to keep between the toes dry as well as clean. You do not want to ignore your feet. A lot of times people bathe, but they don't wash their feet properly. They don't scrub the feet, and so you have an accumulation of germs on your feet, and then it's not dried, and it's just a perfect setting for a germ to start multiplying and cause an infection. Proper foot hygiene is vital. Third thing is that you have to wear the right footwear. So unfortunately, none of those fancy, hard, high-heeled shoes for the ladies, unless your diabetes is nicely controlled and it's just a temporary thing and you're being very mindful about the shoes that you're wearing. But generally speaking, diabetics will find themselves having to wear shoes that are a little less pretty. And for those who specifically have issues with circulation and the feeling and so on, I mean, you have to go and get the special shoes from the orthotic store where they actually check your feet, measure your feet, and offload certain pressure points to decrease the chance of you getting an ulcer. So it's very, very, very crucial to, in this case, just not be so vain about the shoes, but think instead about keeping your feet. Because what's the point of being vain and then later down the line you're not even going to have a foot to put a shoe on, right? So you just kind of have to keep it in perspective like that, right? So another thing too is, in addition to wearing the right footwear, you still have to be cautious about putting unnecessary prolonged pressure to certain areas of the feet. I remember a man I had once, middle-aged man, diabetic, and he went on about a 5-hour road trip. He was driving his family across to another state, and he kept his heel on the ground, I guess, while he was driving for most of the time. And so unfortunately, at the end of the drive, he found himself with a big blister to his heel, and that just progressed into a big old ulcer and a big infection of the bone, and ultimately he lost his foot, unfortunately, just from a road trip, taking a drive and resting his heel on a hard surface for a prolonged period of time. You cannot do that as a diabetic. Yes, sometimes men, feel that they have to do the right thing, which, we appreciate, but sometimes you just need a little help. And you might either have to let the ladies take turn to drive. If the ladies can't drive, then you just have to take very mindful breaks in between. You have to stop. You have to stop every hour, walk around, get the circulation flowing back into your feet, because the thing is, the longer those tissues stay without blood, the higher the chance of those tissues dying. And once you have death of the tissues because they stayed without blood, because you compressed it for so long, right, on the ground, and the tissues actually die, there's no turning back from dead tissue. You have to take breaks so that they can replenish their oxygen and the nutrients and so on, right? Fourth thing, of course, how can I not talk about managing blood sugar levels? That's one of the key actions to engage in with trying to decrease or prevent a foot infection. When the blood is sweet, the germs love it. And blood is sweet, meaning that the whole body is sweet, so to speak. Okay, you don't have to lick your skin to know the body is sweet, but the body is sweet, and you need to control that if you want in any way to decrease your chance of a foot infection. And then fifth and final thing to do to decrease your chance of getting a foot infection is to seek professional advice. Podiatrists are there to help diabetics. They can test you to see what your nerve situation is like, how much nerve damage, if any, you have, kind of have an idea of the circulation. And then they also look for areas of unnecessary high pressure. They look for calluses, and they can treat these calluses, because when you have calluses, those are areas where you can get a lot of pressure under the calluses, and the callus might just look like a simple callus, but it is really pressing the tissues just beneath, and a lot of times you can have infection right under there, because those tissues die, and then through the cracks at the side of the callus, bacteria get in, and then they brew in those dead tissues just beneath the callus, and things can be smoldering there for weeks and sometimes months, right, until it gets down into the bone, and you have a big problem that is really far gone. So you have to see a podiatrist. A lot of people, depending on type of insurance, the insurance will cover podiatry visits, once to twice a year. So just check your health insurance plan. But regardless, if you can afford to see a podiatrist, you must see a podiatrist, because they are specifically trained to handle foot problems, and they know a lot about diabetic foot problems, right? So those are the 5 things that you should get in the habit of doing if you don't want to get a diabetic foot infection. Just to summarize them quickly: inspect your feet every single day. 2, engage in proper foot hygiene. You're bathing, wash your feet as well. 3, wear the right footwear. So it might not be those fancy shoes, but better to have a foot to put some ugly shoes on than to not have a foot at all. All right. 4, you have to manage your blood sugar levels. And 5, seek professional care. Go and see a podiatrist to get an idea of what's going on. Right. Hope you all found this helpful. And if you did, as usual, I will ask you to subscribe to this channel, and you can go ahead and like this video as well. Thanks for watching, and I wish you great health. Bye.